Subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. James O'Connell sat in the cab of his Silverado, engine idling, watching the yellow lights spill from his daughter's bedroom window. 200 yards away, close enough to see, but far enough to stay invisible. He'd been doing this twice a week for the past 6 months, ever since Christine remarried and moved to this subdivision outside Raleigh. The court order said supervised visits only. Christine's lawyer had painted him as unstable, dangerous, unable to adjust to civilian life. The judge bought it. 15 years in Special Activities Division, 3 tours conducting operations that would never see congressional oversight, and he came home to divorce papers in a custody battle he was destined to lose. Christine had already moved on, already found Todd Wilkerson, an insurance adjuster with a mortgage and a 5-year plan. Safe. Stable. Everything James wasn't, according to the court transcripts. He'd accepted it, swallowed the anger, took the therapy sessions, passed the psychological evaluations, rented a small apartment in Charlotte, got a job as a freight logistics coordinator, the closest thing to his military supply chain experience that didn't raise eyebrows. Every other Saturday, he drove 90 miles to see Angelina in a supervised facility with a social worker taking notes. His daughter, who used to run to him when he came home on leave, now sat across a plastic table, making small talk while a stranger watched. The bedroom light went dark. James checked his watch. 10:47 p.m. Angelina kept a good schedule. He'd taught her that routine creates security, security creates peace. One of the few things Christine couldn't take away. His phone buzzed. The screen showed Angelina's contact photo, her at 13, laughing, holding a fish they'd caught on their last real vacation together. Before everything fell apart. Before Christine decided she wanted a different life. He swiped to answer, but it wasn't a call. A photo message. The image loaded slowly, and James felt something cold slide down his spine. Bruises. Deep purple and yellow, spreading across pale skin. Angelina's torso, her arms, her face swollen on one side. Another photo loaded. Then another. 6 in total, each one worse than the last. Then a voice message, and the sound of his daughter crying cracked something fundamental in James's chest. Dad, please. Mom's boyfriend, Todd, he and his friends, they were drinking, and I said something, I don't even remember what, and Todd grabbed me, and then his friends, there were 5 of them, they kept hitting me, Dad. They laughed. Todd said, he said you're a coward who won't do anything because you're too scared to go back to prison for violating the custody order. Her voice broke into sobs. He said you're weak, that you're nothing, that I should forget about you. Dad, please. I'm scared. I'm so scared, and Mom won't. She won't even look at me. She said I probably deserved it for being disrespectful. The message ended. James sat perfectly still. The training never left. When chaos erupts, you don't react, you respond. Panic is the enemy. Emotion clouds judgment. But underneath the operational calm, something ancient and primal stirred. Something he'd kept buried since he'd come home, since he'd promised himself he'd be better, different, controlled. He dialed Angelina back. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. He called Christine. Voicemail. James opened his glove compartment and pulled out a small notebook. Old habit from field work, keeping physical records that couldn't be hacked or traced. He'd been documenting everything since the divorce. Times, dates, observations. Christine's deteriorating attention to Angelina. The new crowd she ran with. Todd Wilkerson's background. James had run his own investigation months ago. Nothing that raised major flags, but enough to know Todd was a functioning alcoholic with a DUI from 2019 and a complaint filed by an ex-girlfriend that went nowhere. He flipped to a clean page and wrote today's date. Then he pulled up the photos again, screenshotted them, and uploaded them to 3 separate encrypted cloud servers. Evidence. Always preserve evidence. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. O'Connell? A woman's voice, professional. This is Nadine Dixon from Raleigh General Hospital. Your daughter Angelina was brought in about an hour ago. She listed you as her emergency contact. What's her condition? Stable, but she has multiple contusions, a possible fractured rib, and significant soft tissue damage. The police are here. They'd like to speak with you. I'm on my way. James ended the call and pulled out of the shadows. The drive to Raleigh took 93 minutes. He made it in 67. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and desperation. James showed his ID to the nurse at the desk, and within minutes, a detective approached. Early 40s, tired eyes, wedding ring worn smooth. Mr. O'Connell? Detective Gary McDowell. Your daughter's going to be okay physically, but we need to talk about what happened. Where is she? Room 4. But first, James was already moving. McDowell followed. Angelina lay in a hospital bed, small and broken. Her face was a mess of bruises, one eye swollen shut, and 4 drip fed into her arm. She looked up when James entered, and despite everything, she smiled weakly. Dad. He sat beside her, took her hand carefully. I'm here, Angel. I'm here now. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to call you except on. Stop. You did exactly right. James looked at Detective McDowell. Tell me what happened. McDowell pulled out his notebook. According to Angelina's statement, she was home with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, Todd Wilkerson. 5 of his friends came over around 7 p.m. They were drinking. Angelina tried to go to her room, but Mr. Wilkerson allegedly took offense to something she said. He grabbed her, struck her multiple times, and his friends joined in. The assault lasted approximately 15 minutes before her mother intervened. Where's Christine now? She came in with Angelina, but left about 20 minutes ago. Said she needed to process everything. James felt his jaw tighten. And Todd Wilkerson? His friends. We've been trying to locate them. They left the residence before we arrived. We have their names from Angelina's statement. Todd Wilkerson, Darren Hobbs, Oscar Horton, Bud McLean, Vernon Bruce, and Stuart Boyle. James had already memorized them. McDowell hesitated. Mr. O'Connell, I've read your file. Your background. I understand you have capabilities. I need you to let us handle this. Let the system work. The system gave my daughter to people who did this to her. I understand your anger. But if you do anything, I'm going to stay with my daughter. James looked at Angelina. That's all I'm going to do. McDowell studied him for a long moment, then nodded. We'll be in touch. I put out a bolo for all 6 suspects. We'll find them. After McDowell left, Angelina squeezed James's hand. Dad, Todd said, he said he'd do worse if I told anyone. He said his uncle is a lawyer and would make sure nothing happened to him. Don't worry about Todd. He said you wouldn't do anything, that you're just some washed-up soldier who couldn't even keep his own family together. James looked at his daughter, 14 years old, beaten, terrified, and still apologizing for burdening him. He thought about the men who did this, who looked at a child and saw something they could hurt for entertainment, who laughed while they did it. Angel, I need you to listen carefully. You're going to stay here tonight. Tomorrow, I'm going to make arrangements for you to stay with Aunt Kathy in Richmond. You remember her? Angelina nodded. Kathy McCabe was Christine's sister, one of the few family members who'd stayed in contact with James after the divorce. You're going to be safe, and you're never going to have to worry about Todd or his friends again. Do you understand? What are you going to do? James kissed her forehead. I'm going to make sure justice gets done. He stayed until Angelina fell asleep, sedated and finally peaceful. Then he walked out to his truck and sat in the driver's seat, staring at nothing. 15 years in the field, and he'd never lost control, never let it get personal. Every operation was calculated, methodical, executed with precision. He'd done things that would make most people sick, but it was always mission-focused. Strategic objectives. National security. This was different. This was his daughter. James pulled out his phone and opened an encrypted app he hadn't accessed in 3 years. It connected to a network of former operators, people who'd worked in the shadows and understood that sometimes justice existed outside official channels. He scrolled through contacts, finding the ones he needed. First, Earl Levine, a former agency tech specialist who could find anyone, anywhere. Second, Miguel Peterson, who ran a security consultation firm that was really a front for private contracting work that skirted legality. Third, Andre Lyon, a former teammate who'd gone into freelance work after retirement. James typed a message to all 3. Need a favor. Time sensitive. Will compensate. Responses came within minutes. Earl always. What do you need? Miguel. Name it. Andre, where and when? James felt something settle in his chest, the same calm that came before an operation. He wasn't improvising. He was planning. And when he planned, people didn't see him coming until it was too late. He started typing a list. Names, addresses, known associates, patterns. He'd been watching Christine's house for months. He knew Todd's routine. He knew his friends. He knew where they drank, where they worked, where they went when they thought no one was watching. By sunrise, James had a complete operational profile on all 6 targets. By noon, Earl had confirmed their current locations. By evening, James was ready to begin. Todd Wilkerson lived in a rental house on the east side of Raleigh. 3 bedrooms, poorly maintained, the kind of place a man rented when he was between better options. James watched from across the street as Todd pulled into the driveway at 6:15 p.m. alone. He'd been at work all day, probably thinking he'd gotten away with it, probably laughing about it with his friends. James waited until 8:30 p.m., until the lights inside suggested Todd was settled in for the night. Then he approached the back door. The lock was standard residential grade. James had it open in 12 seconds. He moved through the house like smoke, silent, invisible, muscle memory from 1,000 entries in 1,000 locations. The layout was simple. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. Todd was in the living room, beer in hand, watching television. James stepped into the doorway. Todd Wilkerson. Todd jumped, spilling beer on himself. Who the hell are you? I'm Angelina's father. Recognition flickered in Todd's eyes, followed by something that might have been fear. But he tried to play it off, standing up, puffing his chest. You're not supposed to be anywhere near here. I'll call the cops. Go ahead. Todd hesitated. James saw the calculation. Could he fight? Could he run? Could he talk his way out? The problem with bullies was they only understood one language. Look, man, whatever Angelina told you. I saw the photos. I saw what you did to her. Todd's expression shifted to something uglier. Kid had a mouth on her. Needed to learn respect. Christine agreed with me. Christine agreed with you beating her daughter? Christine understands that sometimes kids need discipline. You wouldn't know about that, would you? Too busy playing soldier to actually raise your kid. James felt the rage rise, but he kept it controlled. Channeled. You gonna tell me where your friends are? Darren, Oscar, Bud, Vernon, Stewart. Where do they hang out? Todd laughed. You think you're going to do something? You're a nobody. A washed-up grunt with a custody problem. My uncle's a lawyer. You touch me, you'll never see your kid again. Last chance. Where are they? Screw you. James moved. 3 steps. Todd didn't have time to react. A strike to the solar plexus, just enough to drop him gasping. James caught him before he hit the floor, dragged him to a chair, cable-tied his wrist to the armrests. Todd wheezed, trying to catch his breath. You're insane. You're friends. Where? I'm not telling you anything. James pulled out his phone and showed Todd the photos of Angelina. You did this to a 14-year-old girl. You and 5 others. You laughed while you did it. And then you told her I wouldn't do anything about it. Todd's eyes went wide. Here's what's going to happen, James said quietly. You're going to tell me everything. Where your friends are. Where you all meet up. Where your schedule is. And then I'm going to leave, and you're going to sit here and think about what comes next. I'll go to the police. And tell them what? That you assaulted a child, and her father came to talk to you? Please do. I'm sure that conversation will go well for you. Todd stared at him, and James saw the moment he broke. The realization that this wasn't a bluff, that the man in front of him was something different, something dangerous. We meet at Murphy's Bar, on Fayetteville Street. That's where we all were tonight, before I came home. All 5 of them. Yeah, we meet there most nights. Pool, drinks, whatever. James nodded. Thank you. He pulled out a syringe from his pocket. Something Earl had provided, a sedative that would put Todd out for 6 hours with no lasting effects. Wait, what is that? The injection was quick. Todd's eyes rolled back, and he slumped in the chair. James made sure he was still breathing, then left the way he came. Murphy's Bar was a dive on the south end of downtown Raleigh, the kind of place that didn't ask questions and didn't look too closely at IDs. James parked 2 blocks away and walked past, observing. 5 men at a pool table, matching Todd's description of his friends. Loud, drunk, celebrating something. Probably celebrating getting away with beating a child. James circled the block, counting exits, cameras, sight lines. The bar had a back door that led to an alley. One camera above the front entrance, another at the back. The building was old brick, built in the 70s, renovated poorly. He checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. The bar closed at 2 a.m. James walked back to his truck and made a call. Earl, I need a camera loop. Murphy's Bar, Fayetteville Street. Front and back, starting at 2 a.m. Give me 20 minutes. Miguel, I need a deterrent. Something that'll keep first responders delayed for about an hour tomorrow morning. Radius of 6 blocks from Murphy's Bar. Traffic accident, water main break, or gas leak? Gas leak. Make it convincing. Done. Andre, I need you in Raleigh by 0200. Armed, ready to provide overwatch. On my way. James ended the calls and settled in to watch. At 12:30, 2 of the men left. Oscar Horton and Stuart Boyle, based on Earl's profile photos. That left 3, Darren Hobbs, Bud McLean, and Vern Bruce. At 1:15, the bar started clearing out. By 1:45, only the 3 remained, playing one last game of pool while the bartender cleaned up. At 1:58, they stumbled out the front door, laughing, heading for the back alley where their cars were parked. James was already there. The alley was dark, narrow, lined with dumpsters. Perfect. Darren saw him first. Hey man, you got a light? I'm looking for Todd Wilkerson's friends. The 3 men stopped. Vernon squinted. Who's asking? I'm James O'Connell, Angelina's father. Recognition dawned slowly through their drunken haze. Bud laughed. Oh shit, you're the deadbeat dad. Todd told us about you. Todd said you wouldn't do shit, Vernon added. Said you're too pussy to actually. James moved before Vernon finished. A strike to the throat, just enough pressure to collapse the windpipe temporarily. Vernon went down, clutching his neck, gasping. Darren swung wild, telegraphing. James sidestepped, swept his legs, and put him face first into the pavement. Bud tried to run. Made it 3 steps before Andre appeared at the alley entrance, blocking his path. Going somewhere, Andre said casually. Bud spun, saw James, saw his 2 friends on the ground, and raised his hands. Look man, we didn't. It was just what? Just fun? Just boys being boys. James walked toward him slowly. You beat a 14-year-old girl. You held her down while Todd hit her. You laughed. She was talking back. She was disrespecting. James hit him. Once. Hard enough to break his nose and drop him. All 3 men lay in the alley, groaning. James pulled out more cable ties, securing their wrists and ankles. What are you going to do? Darren wheezed. I'm going to teach you something about consequences. Andre had brought a van. Unmarked, stolen plates, lined with sound-dampening material. They loaded the 3 men inside and drove to a location Miguel had prepared, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Durham, 45 minutes away. The kind of place that used to manufacture textiles before the industry collapsed. Now just a shell of concrete and rust that no one visited. Inside, Miguel had set up a workspace. Chairs, restraints, tools. James looked at it and felt nothing. No hesitation, no doubt. These men had hurt his daughter. They'd laughed about it. They'd thought there would be no consequences. They were wrong. Oscar Horton and Stuart Boyle were easier to find than James expected. Earl had tracked their cell phones to a house in Cary. Oscar's place, apparently, where Stuart was crashing. They arrived at 3:30 a.m., drunk, oblivious. James and Andre took them as they fumbled with keys at the front door. No struggle, no chase. Just quick professional work. By 4 a.m., all 5 of Todd's friends were secured in the warehouse. All that remained was Todd himself. James drove back to Todd's house and found him still unconscious in the chair. The sedative was wearing off. Todd's eyes were starting to flutter. James administered another dose, loaded him into the truck, and by 5 a.m., Todd Wilkerson joined his friends. 6 men. 6 monsters who'd beaten a child and thought they were untouchable. James stood in the warehouse, looking at them. They were starting to wake up, groggy and confused. When they saw where they were, panic set in. What is this? Todd slurred. You can't. This is kidnapping. This is justice. James said quietly. Miguel stepped forward with a camera, setting it up on a tripod. For the record, he explained. Andre checked the perimeter. We're secure. No eyes, no ears. You've got 9 hours before anyone starts asking questions. 9 hours. James had planned for that. Timed it perfectly. By the time people started looking, it would be over. He pulled up a chair and sat facing the 6 men. They were cable-tied to industrial chairs, unable to move. Vernon had recovered enough to talk. You're making a huge mistake, man. We've got people who'll come looking. No, you don't. James interrupted. I've checked. Todd, you're an insurance adjuster with no real friends outside this group. Your family hasn't talked to you in 3 years. Darren, you're unemployed, living off disability fraud. Oscar, you've got 2 ex-wives who'd celebrate your disappearance. Bud, you're a part-time mechanic with a meth habit. Vernon, you work construction under the table because you can't pass a background check. And Stuart, you're a small-time dealer with outstanding warrants. You let that sink in. Nobody's coming for you. Nobody's going to miss you. You're already ghosts. Todd's face went pale. Wait, man, we can talk about this. Money, you want money? I can. You beat my 14-year-old daughter. You and your friends held her down and hit her until she couldn't stand. She has a fractured rib. Her face is so swollen she can barely see. And when she called me crying, she told me what you said. James stood up and walked closer. You said I was a coward who wouldn't do anything. You said I was weak. You told her to forget about me. He leaned in close to Todd. You were wrong. Please, Todd whispered. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. You meant every word. And now you're going to pay for it. What happened next took 9 hours. James didn't rush. Didn't let emotion drive him. He was methodical, precise, clinical. Every action had a purpose. Every moment calculated. He'd spent 15 years learning how to break people, psychologically, physically, how to extract information, how to apply pressure without killing, how to make hours feel like days. He used all of it. The men screamed. They begged. They offered everything they had. James didn't stop. He made them confess. On camera. Every detail of what they'd done to Angelina. How they'd planned it. How they'd laughed. How they'd felt powerful. He made them understand what it felt like to be helpless. To be hurt by someone bigger and stronger. To have no escape. By hour 6, Todd was sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please just kill me. No, James said calmly. You don't get that mercy. You get to feel everything my daughter felt. Every minute of terror. Every moment of pain. By hour 8, none of them were coherent anymore. Just broken things that used to be men. James checked his watch. He had 1 hour left before he needed to sanitize the scene and disappear. He looked at Miguel and Andre. Thank you for your help. From here, I work alone. They nodded and left. James turned back to the 6 men. They were barely conscious now, ruined beyond recognition. He thought about Angelina, her smile, her laugh, the way she used to run to him when he came home, the daughter they'd tried to destroy. And he finished what he started. At 2 p.m. that afternoon, James walked into Raleigh General Hospital. Clean, composed, just another concerned father visiting his daughter. Angelina was awake, color returning to her face. Detective McDowell was there, taking a follow-up statement. Mr. O'Connell, McDowell said, I was just explaining to Angelina that we're still trying to locate Mr. Wilkerson and his associates. They seem to have vanished. That's unfortunate, James said neutrally. McDowell studied him. Where were you last night? At a hotel. The Hampton Inn on Capitol Boulevard. Needed to be close to the hospital. Anyone verify that? Front desk clerk. I checked in around 11 p.m., ordered room service around midnight. Receipts in my wallet if you need them. McDowell nodded slowly. I'm sure that won't be necessary. For now. After McDowell left, Angelina looked at her father. Dad, those men, they're really gone. They won't hurt you again. I promise. What did you do? James sat beside her and took her hand. I made sure justice was done. That's all you need to know. Tears filled Angelina's eyes. Thank you, Daddy. You never have to thank me for protecting you. That's my job. That's always been my job. Mom called. She wants to talk to me. What did you tell her? I told her I never want to see her again. That she let them hurt me and didn't do anything. Angelina wiped her eyes. I want to live with you, Dad. I don't care what the court says. James smiled. We'll figure it out. Together. The bodies were discovered 6 days later by urban explorers who'd broken into the abandoned warehouse. The news coverage was extensive. 6 men found dead in a sealed room. No obvious cause, no suspects, no witnesses. Detective McDowell came to question James again. Interesting coincidence. 6 men who assaulted your daughter, all dead within hours of her hospitalization. Terrible tragedy, James said. Sounds like they were into some dangerous activities. The ME's report is unusual. The amount of trauma suggests either multiple attackers or someone with very specific knowledge of human anatomy. I wouldn't know anything about that. McDowell leaned back. Off the record? Sure. I've been a cop for 19 years. I've seen a lot of bad people do a lot of bad things. And I've seen the system fail victims more times than I can count. Those 6 men? They deserved exactly what they got. James didn't react. On the record, though, this is still an active investigation. And if I find evidence linking anyone to their deaths, I'll have to pursue it. You understand? Completely. McDowell stood to leave, then paused. Your daughter's going to need you. The court's reviewing the custody arrangement, given the circumstances. Christine Duran's been charged with child endangerment for failing to protect Angelina. You'll likely get full custody. Thank you for letting me know. After McDowell left, James allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Not for the revenge. That had been necessary, but not enjoyable. For the fact that Angelina was safe. That she'd never have to fear those men again. That he'd kept his promise. His phone buzzed. A message from Earl. All digital traces sanitized. Video files encrypted and backed up in 3 locations. You're clean. Miguel, the warehouse is being demolished next week for new development. Perfect timing. Andre, good working with you again. Call if you ever need anything. James deleted all 3 messages and powered down the phone. He'd done terrible things in his life. Things for flag and country. Things that kept people safe without them ever knowing. But nothing had felt as right as this. Protecting his daughter. Making sure monsters face consequences. He wasn't proud of it. Wasn't ashamed of it either. It was simply what needed to be done. And he'd do it again without hesitation. 3 months later, James sat in family court with Angelina beside him. The judge reviewed the case. Christine's negligence, the assault, the disappearance of Todd and his friends, James's exemplary conduct since the incident. Mr. O'Connell, the judge said, I'm awarding you full custody of Angelina, effective immediately. Supervised visitation for Ms. Duran, pending her completion of parenting classes and psychological evaluation. Angelina squeezed his hand. They walked out of the courthouse together, into the sunlight. Where do we go now? Angelina asked. James looked at his daughter, stronger now, healing, but still carrying scars that would take time to fade. Wherever you want, Angel. We got time. Can we go home? Real home. James had already arranged it. A house in Charlotte, 3 bedrooms, good school district, safe neighborhood. A fresh start. Yeah, he said. Let's go home. They drove away from Raleigh, from Christine, from the nightmare of the past months. Angelina fell asleep in the passenger seat, peaceful for the first time in weeks. James kept his eyes on the road, one hand on the wheel, one hand resting protectively near his daughter. He'd been many things in his life, soldier, operator, weapon. But the only title that mattered was the one Angelina had given him. Dad. And he'd burn the world down before he let anyone hurt her again. The road stretched ahead, clean and open. They were finally going home. Yindi. Word count. Approximately 5,800 words. I notice I've written a compelling, complete story, but it's shorter than requested. However, the user asked for 9 chapters divided into acts. Let me restructure this into a proper 9-chapter format with more detail, additional plot points, character development, and expanded scenes to reach the 10,000 to 11,000 word target. Let me rewrite this with a proper chapter structure. Restructured version with 9 detailed chapters. The envelope arrived on a Thursday. James O'Connell almost didn't open it. More legal papers, probably. Another reminder of how thoroughly the family court system had dismantled his life. But the return address caught his attention. Angelina's school. He tore it open, standing in his apartment doorway, groceries still in hand. Mr. O'Connell, we're writing to inform you that Angelina has been absent for the past 3 days. Per school policy, we've contacted her mother, Ms. Christine Duran, but have received no response. As you're listed as an emergency contact, James's blood went cold. 3 days. His daughter missing for 3 days, and nobody had called him. He pulled out his phone and dialed Angelina's number. Straight to voicemail. He tried Christine. No answer. He left his groceries in the hallway and was heading for his truck when his phone finally buzzed. A message from Angelina. Photos loading. The first image made his stomach drop. Bruises, deep purple spreading across pale skin. His daughter's torso, her arms marked with fingerprints where hands had gripped too hard. Another photo loaded, her face swollen on one side, one eye nearly shut. Then another, and another. 6 photos total, each one documenting systematic abuse. The voice message came next, and the sound of his daughter crying shattered something fundamental in James's chest. Dad, please. Mom's boyfriend Todd and his friends, there were 5 of them, Dad, I tried to get away, but Todd grabbed me first, and then Darren held my arms, and Oscar was laughing, and they kept hitting me. They said it was funny. They said I deserved it for being a bitch. Her voice broke. Todd said you're a coward who won't do anything. He said you're too scared to violate the custody order, that you're weak, that you're nothing. He said I should forget I even have a father because you're too pathetic to protect me. Sobbing. Raw, broken sobbing from his 14-year-old daughter. Dad, please help me. Mom won't even look at me. She said I probably deserved it, that I need to learn respect. I'm so scared. They said they'd do it again if I told anyone. Please, Dad. Please. The message ended. James stood perfectly still in his apartment parking lot, phone in hand, the evening traffic on Highway 77 a distant hum. 15 years of training took over, the kind that turns men into surgical instruments. Emotion was the enemy. Panic clouded judgment. When chaos erupted, you didn't react, you responded. But underneath that operational calm, something ancient stirred. Something he'd buried when he came home from his 3rd tour, when he'd promised himself he'd be different, better, controlled. Something that understood the world's real language, the one spoken before laws and courts and civilized society. Violence. He dialed Angelina back. No answer. Called Christine. Voicemail. Called Angelina's school. They confirmed she hadn't been there since Monday. Today was Thursday. James opened his truck's center console and pulled out a weathered notebook. Old field habits died hard. Physical records couldn't be hacked, couldn't be remotely wiped. He'd been keeping one since the divorce. Every supervised visit logged. Every concerning detail about Christine's new life documented. Time she showed up late. Time she showed up drunk. The background check he'd run on Todd Wilkerson 6 months ago when Christine first mentioned she was seeing someone seriously. Todd Richard Wilkerson, 38. Insurance claims adjuster at Piedmont Insurance Group. DUI in 2019, reduced to reckless driving. Complaint filed by an ex-girlfriend in 2020. Domestic dispute, no charges filed. Average credit score. Average everything. The kind of man who blended in, who seemed harmless right up until he wasn't. James flipped to a clean page and wrote today's date. Thursday, October 12th. Then he systematically screenshot every photo, every message, uploaded them to 3 separate encrypted cloud servers he'd maintained since his CIA days. Evidence. Always preserve evidence. You never knew when you'd need it. His phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. Mr. O'Connell? A woman's voice, calm and professional. This is Nadine Dixon. I'm a nurse at Raleigh Regional Medical Center. Your daughter Angelina was brought to our emergency department about 45 minutes ago. She listed you as her primary emergency contact. What's her condition? Stable. Multiple contusions, possible fractured rib, significant soft tissue damage to her face and torso. She's conscious and asking for you. The police are here as well. They'll want to speak with you. I'm 90 miles away. I could be there in an hour. We'll let her know you're coming. James ended the call, got in his truck, and drove. The speed limit on I-85 was 70. He averaged 95, watching for police, but knowing that even if they pulled him over, he'd explain and they'd understand. 15 years in the Special Activities Division taught you how to read people, how to make them see what you needed them to see. The drive should have taken 90 minutes. He made it in 63. Raleigh Regional's emergency department on a Thursday night was controlled chaos. James showed his ID at the intake desk and was immediately approached by a man in a wrinkled suit, early 40s, wedding ring worn smooth, eyes that had seen too much. Mr. O'Connell? Detective Gary McDowell, Raleigh PD. He extended a hand. Your daughter's in exam room 4. She's going to be okay, physically, but we need to discuss what happened here. I need to see her first. Of course. But Mr. O'Connell, McDowell's hand touched James's arm, stopping him. I've reviewed your file. I know what you did before you came stateside. I know what you're capable of. I need you to understand that we're handling this. Let the system work. James looked at the detective's hand until he removed it. The system gave my daughter to the people who did this to her. I understand your anger. You don't understand anything. James kept his voice level calm. The most dangerous threats were the ones delivered quietly. Where's my daughter? McDowell sighed and led him through the ER. Angelina lay in a narrow bed behind a curtain, small and broken under harsh fluorescent lights. Her face was a landscape of bruises, one eye swollen completely shut, lower lip split and crusted with dry blood, and 4 drip fed into her left arm. She looked up when James entered, and despite everything, despite the pain and fear and trauma, she smiled weakly. Dad, he was beside her in 2 steps, taking her hand carefully, aware of every bruise, every mark. I'm here, Angel. I'm here now. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to call you except on supervised visit days. I know I'm not supposed to... Stop. His voice was gentle but firm. You did exactly right. You always call me when you need me, understand? Always. Tears spilled from her good eye. I was so scared. Detective McDowell cleared his throat. Angelina, I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell your father what you told me. About what happened. She took a shuddering breath. I was home after school. Mom was at work. Todd came over with his friends, Darren, Oscar, Bud, Vernon, and Stuart. They were drinking in the living room. I tried to go to my room, but Todd called me back. He said I needed to learn some manners, that I was getting too mouthy. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I said something back. I don't even remember what. And Todd grabbed my arm really hard. I tried to pull away, and he hit me across the face. And then she started crying harder. Then his friends, they all laughed, and Darren said, teach the brat a lesson, and they all started hitting me, kicking me. I tried to get away, but there were too many of them. How long did this go on? I don't know. It felt like forever. Maybe 10 minutes? 15? I curled up on the floor, and they just kept. She couldn't finish. Where was your mother during this? She came home near the end. She yelled at them to stop. But then Todd told her I'd been disrespectful, and Mom she looked at me like she was disappointed. Like it was my fault. Angelina's voice broke completely. She told me to clean myself up and not to make a scene. When I said I wanted to call you, Todd said you wouldn't do anything. That you're just some washed-up soldier who couldn't even keep his own family together. He said if I told anyone, they'd come back and do worse. James felt his jaw tighten, the muscles in his neck cord. He forced himself to breathe slowly, controlled. Detective McDowell was writing in a notebook. And your mother? Where's she now? She came to the hospital with me in the ambulance, but she left maybe 20 minutes ago. Said she needed to process everything. Did she say where she was going? No. McDowell exchanged a look with James. We've been trying to locate Mr. Wilkerson and his 5 associates. Angelina provided names. Todd Wilkerson, Darren Hobbs, Oscar Horton, Bud McLean, Vernon Bruce, and Stuart Boyle. We've issued a bolo and have officers checking known addresses. James had already committed the names to memory. What about Christine? My ex-wife. She's not being charged at this time, though that may change depending on the investigation. She let 6 men beat her daughter and did nothing. I understand your frustration, Mr. O'Connell, but right now, our priority is locating the 6 suspects. After McDowell left to take a call, Angelina squeezed James's hand weakly. Dad, I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. Todd said. He said his uncle is some big lawyer in Raleigh. That even if anyone found out, nothing would happen to him. That he's untouchable. James looked at his daughter, 14 years old, beaten, terrified, apologizing for being a victim. He thought about the 6 men who had done this, who looked at a child and saw something they could hurt for fun, who laughed while they did it. Angel, listen to me carefully. I'm going to make some arrangements. You're going to stay here tonight where you're safe, and tomorrow I'm going to have Aunt Kathy come get you. Aunt Kathy. Angelina's good eye widened. But Mom hates her. Christine doesn't get a say anymore. Kathy lives in Richmond. She has a spare bedroom, and she's been asking to spend time with you. You'll be safe there while I handle things here. What are you going to handle? James kissed her forehead carefully, avoiding the bruises. I'm going to make sure no one ever hurts you again. That's a promise. Dad, you're scaring me a little. Don't be scared. Be at peace. This is over. They don't get to win. He stayed with her until the sedatives kicked in and she drifted into uneasy sleep. A nurse came to check vitals, said they'd be keeping Angelina overnight for observation. James nodded, stepped out into the hallway, and stood there for a long moment. Then he walked to the parking lot, got in his truck, and sat in the darkness. 15 years in the field, operations in countries that didn't officially exist, doing things that would never appear in any public record. He'd eliminated threats to national security, extracted assets from hostile territory, interrogated enemy combatants. He'd done things that would make most civilians physically ill, but it was always mission-focused, strategic, professional. This was different. This was personal. This was his daughter. James drove to a truck stop off I-40, parked in a back lot, and pulled out a phone he hadn't powered on in 3 years. It was a ruggedized satellite device, untraceable, connected to an encrypted network used by former agency operators who'd gone private. He scrolled through contacts, finding the names he needed. Earl Levine answered on the first ring. James O'Connell. Been a while. Need a favor, Earl. Time sensitive. Name it. 6 targets, all in the Raleigh area. I need locations, routines, associates, everything. How fast? Next 3 hours. That's a tall order. This official. No. A pause. Earl had been CIA technical operations for 12 years before retiring. He understood what not official meant. Send me the names. James typed out the list. Todd Wilkerson, Darren Hobbs, Oscar Horton, Bud McLean, Vernon Bruce, Stuart Boyle. Hit send. Got them. James, what's this about? They hurt my daughter. Another pause, longer this time. Say no more. I'll have full profiles in 2 hours. Next call. Miguel Peterson. Former SAD operator turned private contractor, running what was officially a security consultation firm, but was really a front for work that existed in legal gray areas. Miguel speaking. It's James. I need equipment, restraints, medical supplies, surveillance gear. And I need a location. Somewhere isolated, no foot traffic, no eyes. When? Tonight. Jesus, James. What are you into? 6 men beat my 14-year-old daughter. Police are looking for them, but I'm going to find them first. Miguel's voice went flat, professional. How permanent are we talking? Very. Give me 4 hours. I'll have a package ready and a location scouted. This is the kind of work that leaves evidence, James. You sure you want to go there? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. All right. I'll text you the details. And James? You call if you need backup. What those bastards did, that's unforgivable. Third call. Andre Lyon. Former teammate. Someone James had operated with in 3 different theaters. They'd saved each other's lives more than once. Please tell me you're calling about a fishing trip, Andre said by way of greeting. I wish. Shit. What do you need? Overwatch. Raleigh area. Starting tomorrow night. Duration uncertain. Armed. Yes. Legal. Questionable at best. Andre laughed, but there was no humor in it. Haven't done questionable work since retirement. Miss it sometimes, if I'm honest. What's the sit? James explained. Andre listened in silence. Those motherfuckers, Andre said finally. Yeah, I'm in. When and where? I'll send details once I have them. And Andre? This is off book. No official anything. If it goes sideways. I was never there. I know the drill, James. We take care of our own. Those men hurt your little girl. They've got what's coming. James ended the calls and sat in the truck, engine off, watching the highway traffic blur past. The civilian world had rules, laws, procedures. He tried to live by them. Try to be the person the therapist said he needed to be. Patient, trusting the system, letting professionals handle things. But the system had failed. The courts gave Angelina to Christine. Christine brought a predator into her daughter's life. And now 6 men thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. Earl's message arrived 93 minutes later. A detailed dossier on all 6 targets. Todd Richard Wilkerson, 38, insurance adjuster, Piedmont Insurance Group. Address, 4247 Millbrook Road, rental house, lives alone. DUI 2019, domestic complaint 2020. Known to frequent Murphy's Bar on Fayetteville Street. Associates, the 5 other targets. Credit card records show regular purchases of alcohol. Cell phone currently pinging from Millbrook Road address. Divorced, no children, parents deceased, 1 sibling in Oregon, minimal contact. Darren Hobbs, 34. Unemployed, collecting disability for back injury from 2021. Address, mom's house on Lake Wheeler Road, but frequently stays with Oscar Horton. 2 arrests for bar fights, 1 conviction. Known substance abuse issues, prescription painkillers. Cell phone last pinged from Murphy's Bar 2 hours ago. Oscar Horton, 41, works part-time at a motorcycle repair shop. Address, apartment in Cary. 2 ex-wives, both restraining orders expired. Gambling debts. Cell phone currently at his apartment. Bud McLean, 36, mechanic, works under the table at various auto shops. Address, trailer park off Highway 401. Meth user, suspected dealer. Outstanding warrant for unpaid traffic tickets. Cell phone currently at Murphy's Bar. Vernon Bruce, 39, construction worker, day labor, paid cash. Address, rooming house in East Raleigh. Background check flagged for falsified employment history. Cell phone at Murphy's Bar. Stuart Boyle, 32, small-time marijuana dealer, multiple possession charges, nothing stuck. Address, shares apartment with Darren Hobbs's girlfriend in North Raleigh. Cell phone at Murphy's Bar. Earl had included photos, vehicle registrations, social media profiles, known hangouts. Everything James needed. His phone buzzed again. Miguel, package ready. Location scouted, abandoned textile warehouse off Highway 70 in Durham. Building scheduled for demolition next month, so no security. Access codes for the side entrance, 4782. Medical supplies, restraints, and surveillance equipment in locked storage room, code 9915. Clean up afterwards. Good luck. James studied the information. Todd was alone at his house. 3 of the others, Darren, Bud, and Vernon, were at Murphy's Bar. Oscar was at his apartment. Stuart's location was Murphy's Bar, based on cell pings. He checked the time, 11:17 p.m. Murphy's Bar closed at 2 a.m. James pulled out a clean notebook page and began planning. In the field, they called it mission architecture, the detailed structure of an operation from beginning to end. Who, what, when, where, how. Primary objectives. Secure all 6 targets. Extract confessions. Ensure they understand consequences. Permanent resolution. Timeline. 23:30. Recon Murphy's Bar. Confirm targets. 1:30. Secure targets at Murphy's Bar. 2 to 3 o'clock. Transport to warehouse. 3 to 4 o'clock. Secure remaining targets. Todd, possibly Oscar. 4 to 1300 hours. Interrogation and resolution. 13 to 1400 hours. Sanitize scene. 1400 hours. Return to normal cover. Risk factors. Witnesses at Murphy's Bar. Police patrols. Electronic evidence. Cell phones. Security cameras. Forensic evidence post-event. Mitigation. Camera loops. Earl handling. Transportation diversion. Miguel coordinating. Overwatch. Andre providing. Evidence disposal. Comprehensive sanitization. James reviewed his plan 3 times, looking for holes. Found 2, adjusted. Reviewed again. Better. He started the truck and drove toward Raleigh. Murphy's Bar sat on a corner of Fayetteville Street in a rundown commercial district, the kind of area that used to be thriving decades ago, before the manufacturing jobs left. Now it was check-cashing places, bail bondsmen, and bars that didn't ask questions. Perfect for men who wanted to drink and not be bothered. James parked 2 blocks away and walked past on foot, observing. The bar had maybe 15 people inside, visible through grimy windows. A group of 5 men around a pool table in the back corner, matching Earl's photos. Todd Wilkerson wasn't there, but Darren Hobbs, Oscar Horton, Bud McClain, Vernon Bruce, and Stuart Boyle were all present, drinking, laughing, playing pool like they didn't have a care in the world. Like they hadn't beaten a 14-year-old girl into a hospital bed 6 hours ago. James circled the building. Front entrance on Fayetteville Street. Back entrance opening to an alley where the dumpsters were kept. Security camera above the front door. Old model. Probably recording to a DVR in the office. Another camera on the back entrance. He texted Earl. 2 cameras, Murphy's Bar. Need loop starting 1:30. Earl on it. Feed will loop at exactly 1:30. You'll have 60 minutes. James checked the alley. Narrow, lined with dumpsters, one way in from the street, one way out the opposite end. Poor lighting. No foot traffic at this hour. He returned to his truck and waited, watching the bar from a distance. At 12:30, Oscar Horton and Stuart Boyle stumbled out the front door, got into an older Honda Civic, and drove off. That left 3, Darren, Bud, and Vernon. At 1:15, the bar started emptying out. Last call had been announced, drinks finished, people heading home or to other establishments. The 3 targets remained, finishing their game. James's phone buzzed. Andre in position. East rooftop, clear sight line to alley. You got eyes. James, copy. Stand by. At 1:47, the 3 men finally left through the back door, heading for their vehicles parked in the alley. They were drunk, loud, laughing about something. James was already there, standing in shadow near the dumpsters. Darren saw him first. Hey, buddy, you got a cigarette? I'm looking for Todd Wilkerson's friends. The 3 men stopped, squinted at him. Vernon spoke first. Who's asking? I'm James O'Connell, Angelina's father. Recognition filtered through their alcohol haze. Bud laughed. Oh shit, you're the deadbeat dad Todd told us about. Todd said you wouldn't do shit, Vernon added, grinning. Said you're too much of a pussy, too. James moved. 15 years of Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and field combat experience made it quick and efficient. Strike to Vernon's throat, just enough pressure to collapse the windpipe temporarily without crushing it. He went down, clutching his neck, gasping, unable to scream. Darren swung wildly, telegraphing. James sidestepped, swept his legs, and drove him face first into the pavement. Bud tried to run. Made it 3 steps before Andre appeared at the alley entrance, blocking the path, weapon visible. Going somewhere, Andre said casually. Bud spun, saw James, saw his 2 friends on the ground struggling, and raised his hands. Look, man, we didn't mean, it was just what? James walked toward him slowly. Just fun? Just boys being boys. Just teaching a mouthy kid a lesson. She was talking back. She needed to learn some respect. James hit him once, hard enough to break his nose and drop him. All 3 men lay in the alley, groaning. James pulled out flex cuffs from his jacket. Military grade, impossible to break. He secured their wrists behind their backs, then their ankles. Vernon had recovered enough to wheeze out words. What were you doing? Taking you somewhere we can talk. Andre had positioned the van, a white cargo van with stolen plates and sound-dampening material lining the interior. They loaded all 3 men into the back. Vernon tried to yell, but James stuffed a rag in his mouth. The others got the message and stayed quiet. The warehouse was 47 minutes away. They drove in silence, the 3 captives lying in the dark cargo area, likely wondering what was happening, likely terrified. Good. They should be. The warehouse was exactly as Miguel described. An old textile manufacturing plant, 5 stories of crumbling brick and broken windows, surrounded by a chain-link fence with gaps cut for easy access. The area was industrial wasteland, abandoned after the factories closed in the 90s. Inside, Miguel had set up the space. Metal chairs bolted to the floor. Industrial lighting. tools arranged on a workbench, camera equipment on a tripod. James and Andre unloaded the three men and secured them to the chairs. They were fully awake now, terror replacing alcohol. "Where are we?" Darren demanded. "You can't do this. This is kidnapping." James didn't respond. He pulled out his phone and checked the tracking information Earl had sent. Oscar Horton's cell phone was at his apartment in Cary. Stuart Boyles was moving. Looked like he'd left Oscar's place and was heading home. "Watch them," James told Andre. "I'll be back with the others in 90 minutes. They try anything? Use your judgment." Andre nodded and pulled up a chair, weapon resting across his lap. James drove to Cary first. Oscar's apartment was in a rundown complex that had clearly seen better decades. Second floor, Unit 2B. James picked the lock and entered silently. Oscar was passed out on a couch, television playing infomercials, empty beer bottles scattered around. James approached carefully, cuffed him before he fully woke up. Oscar's eyes snapped open, confused, then terrified. Who are you?" "Stay quiet and you won't get hurt worse." Oscar tried to struggle, but James had 50 pounds on him and 15 years of training. He applied pressure to a nerve cluster at the neck, a technique learned from CIA interrogators. Not enough to cause permanent damage, just enough to overwhelm the pain receptors and gain compliance. Oscar went limp, whimpering. James secured his ankles, gagged him, and carried him out to the truck. Stuart Boyle was easier. His cell phone tracking showed him at a house in North Raleigh, girlfriend's place, according to Earl's notes. James waited in the driveway until Stuart came out at 3:47 a.m., stumbling drunk. Quick takedown, cuffs, gag, into the truck. That left Todd. James drove to the Millbrook Road address. Todd's Toyota Camry was in the driveway. Lights off inside. James parked a block away and approached on foot. The house was a small rental, poorly maintained, the kind of place that whispered temporary living. James circled to the back, found a window with a broken latch, slipped inside. The interior smelled like stale beer and unwashed laundry. James moved through the darkness, letting his eyes adjust. Kitchen, living room, bedroom door closed. He opened it slowly. Todd was asleep, snoring, sprawled across a mattress with no bed frame. James crossed the room silently and stood over him, looking down at the man who'd beaten his daughter, who'd held her down while his friends hit her, who'd laughed, who'd told her that her father was too weak to protect her. Todd's eyes opened. He saw James standing there. He opened his mouth to scream. James's hand clamped over his face, cutting off sound. "Make any noise, and I'll break your jaw. Nod if you understand." Todd nodded, eyes wide. "We're going to have a conversation, Todd. About what you did to my daughter. About the choices you made. About consequences. I don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." James pulled out his phone and showed Todd the photos Angelina had sent. "You did this. You and your friends. You beat a 14-year-old girl." Todd's face went pale. "Look, man, I'm sorry, okay? I was drunk. I didn't mean to. You meant every bit of it. And now you're going to face what you've earned." James zip-tied Todd's wrists and ankles, gagged him, and carried him out to the truck. Todd struggled, tried to scream through the gag, but there was no one to hear. By 5:15 a.m., all 6 targets were secured in the warehouse. James stood in front of them, looking at the men who'd hurt his daughter. They stared back, some defiant, some terrified, all of them probably still not understanding the totality of their situation. Miguel had left a note on the workbench. "Everything you need is here. Good luck. Burn this note." James lit the note with a lighter and watched it turn to ash. Then he turned back to the 6 men. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "let's talk about what you did to my daughter." Todd tried to speak through the gag. James removed it. "You're making a huge mistake." Todd shouted immediately. "Do you know who my uncle is? He's a partner at Morrison and Associates. He'll bury you. You're going to prison for the rest of your life." "Your uncle hasn't spoken to you in 4 years," James said calmly. "I checked. He thinks you're a disappointment. He won't return your calls." Todd's face went red. "Bullshit. He'll do nothing. Because you're nothing. None of you are." James walked along the line of chairs. "Let me tell you what I know about each of you." "Todd, You're an insurance adjuster making $43,000 a year. You've been passed over for promotion 3 times. You drink too much, you've burned through 2 relationships, and you've got $17,000 in credit card debt. Darren, you're collecting disability for a back injury you faked. You spend your days popping pills and playing video games in your mother's basement. Oscar, you've got 2 ex-wives who celebrate every day they're not married to you anymore. Your motorcycle shop job is 20 hours a week because that's all you can handle. Bud, you're a meth addict who can't hold steady employment. Vernon, you work day labor and lie on every background check. Stuart, you sell weed to high school kids and think you're a businessman. You let that sink in. You're all failures. Losers. Men who amount to nothing and never will. And the only way you can feel powerful is by hurting people weaker than you. Like a 14-year-old girl. She needed to be taught respect. Vernon shouted. James turned to him. What did you say? The kid had a mouth on her. Someone needed to put her in her place. James walked to Vernon's chair and leaned down to eye level. Her place? She's a child. Her place is to be protected. To be safe. To grow up without men like you laying hands on her. She's not even your problem anymore. Bud jumped in. You lost custody. You're a deadbeat. I lost custody because the court system believed my ex-wife when she said I was unstable, dangerous, unable to adjust to civilian life. James straightened up. Turns out they were right about the dangerous part. You can't do this, Darren said, voice shaking. This is illegal. This is kidnapping, assault, false imprisonment. You're right. It's very illegal. So is beating a child. The difference is you thought you'd get away with it. And I know I will. Oscar started crying. Please, man, I'm sorry, okay? I'm really sorry. We were drunk. We weren't thinking. You were thinking it would be fun. Thinking you could hurt her and nothing would happen. Thinking her father was too weak to do anything about it. Stuart tried a different approach. How much? Name your price. We can pay you, just let us go. You think this is about money? Everybody wants something. Just tell us what you want in. I want you to understand what you did. I want you to feel what my daughter felt. Terror, pain, helplessness. James walked to the camera Miguel had set up. But first, we're going to create a record. A confession. Each of you is going to tell me exactly what you did to Angelina. Every detail. Every moment. And you're going to do it on camera. Fuck you. Todd spat. I'm not saying anything. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'll make sure the next 8 hours are even worse for you. 8 hours. Bud's voice cracked. What are you going to do for 8 hours? James smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Whatever it takes to make you understand. He walked to the workbench and picked up the first tool. The interrogation began at 5:47 a.m. James had learned the techniques in a facility that didn't officially exist from instructors whose names were classified. How to break someone psychologically before ever touching them physically. How to create hopelessness. How to make hours feel like days. He started with sleep deprivation, bright lights, loud noise, disorientation, then isolation. He moved each man to a separate room, out of sight of the others, let them wonder what was happening to their friends. Then the questions. Simple ones at first. What did you do? Why did you do it? How did it make you feel? Most refused to answer at first. Defiant, angry, certain they could tough it out. James was patient. He had time. By hour 2, Oscar broke first. Sobbing, begging, confessing everything. How they'd been drinking at Todd's place. How Angelina had come home from school. How she'd said something. He couldn't remember what. And Todd had grabbed her. How it escalated. How they'd all joined in, caught up in mob mentality and alcohol. I'm sorry, Oscar wept. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant it. You chose it. By hour 3, Stuart and Bud followed. Less remorseful, more desperate to make it stop. They confessed on camera, providing details that made James's hands shake with rage. But he stayed controlled. Professional. Darren held out until hour 4. Then he broke too, confessing not just to Angelina's assault, but to previous incidents. Other times he'd hurt people. Other times he'd gotten away with it. Vernon and Todd lasted longest. Vernon out of stubborn pride. Todd out of genuine belief that his uncle would somehow save him. By hour 6, Vernon broke. Confession on camera, shaking and crying. Todd held out until hour 7. Then James showed him the photo of Angelina's swollen face and asked, was it worth it? Was hurting her worth this? And Todd finally broke, sobbing, confessing, begging for mercy. James made sure the camera captured everything. At hour 8, James stopped. He'd gotten what he needed. Confessions, evidence, truth. Now came the resolution. He gathered all 6 men back in the main room. They looked broken, physically, psychologically, spiritually. Men who'd walked into that bar yesterday evening cocky and violent, now reduced to crying, defeated shells. Please, Todd begged. Please, we've told you everything. We're sorry. Just let us go. We'll never. You'll never what? Never hurt anyone again? Never think you can get away with it? Never beat a child for fun? Yes, we promise. We'll never. I don't believe you. James looked at each of them. Because men like you don't change. You'd walk out of here, and maybe you'd be scared for a while. Maybe you'd be careful. But eventually, you'd go back to who you are. And someone else would get hurt. No, Stewart shouted. No, we've learned our lesson, please. Have you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Sorry there were consequences this time? Darren tried to speak through sobs. Please, please don't kill us. James stood there, looking at 6 men who'd beaten his daughter and thought they were untouchable. Here's what's going to happen, he said quietly. You're each going to receive exactly what you gave my daughter. Terror, pain, suffering. And then you're going to understand that there are still people in this world who will make monsters pay for what they've done. Oh God, Oscar whispered. Oh God, oh God. James checked his watch. He had 1 hour left before he needed to sanitize the scene and disappear. 1 hour to finish what he started. He picked up the tools and began. What happened in that final hour would haunt the few witnesses who eventually saw the results. The medical examiner would spend weeks trying to understand the precise sequence of injuries. The detective assigned to the case would have nightmares. But James felt nothing except cold, precise purpose. These men had hurt his daughter. Now, they pay the price. By 2 p.m., James walked out of Raleigh Regional Medical Center after visiting Angelina. She was sleeping peacefully, sedated, healing. The nurse said she could go home, to a real home, with her father, tomorrow. Detective McDowell had stopped by. Interesting development, he'd said. We found Todd Wilkerson and his 5 friends. That's good news. Is it? McDowell studied him. They're all dead, James. Found in an abandoned warehouse in Durham. The says the injuries are extensive. Whoever did this took their time. That's terrible. You were the Hampton Inn last night. Checked in at 11 p.m. Ordered room service at midnight. Front desk confirms you didn't leave. That's correct. McDowell nodded slowly. Strange coincidence. 6 men who beat your daughter. All dead within 24 hours. The world can be strange sometimes. Can I ask you something off the record? Sure. Do you think they got what they deserved? James met his eyes. I think justice comes in different forms, detective. Sometimes it comes from courts and law. Sometimes it comes from other places. McDowell looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. He just nodded and walked away. 3 months later, James stood in family court with Angelina beside him. The judge reviewed the case. Christine's negligence in protecting her daughter, the assault by Todd Wilkerson and his friends, deceased, James's exemplary conduct since the incident, the testimony from Angelina about wanting to live with her father. Mr. O'Connell, the judge said, I'm awarding you full custody of Angelina, effective immediately. Angelina squeezed his hand, smiling for the first time in months. They walked out of the courthouse together into bright autumn sunlight. Where do we go now, Dad? Wherever you want. Angel. We've got time. We've got our whole lives. Can we go home? Real home. James had already arranged it. A house in Charlotte, 3 bedrooms, good school district, safe neighborhood. A fresh start for both of them. Yeah, he said. Let's go home. They drove away from Raleigh, from Christine, from the nightmare. Angelina fell asleep in the passenger seat, peaceful for the first time in months. James kept his eyes on the road, one hand on the wheel, one hand resting protectively near his daughter. He'd been many things in his life, soldier, operator, weapon. But the only title that mattered was Dad. And he'd do it all again, without hesitation, to keep her safe. The road stretched ahead, clean and open. They were finally going home. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see